Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with your host, Yariv, Wolok, my partner in crime, as always, Vasili, Gianarakos. Vasili, back from your on-site experience and back to the show in general, which is awesome to have you back. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well, Yariv. Obviously, was off last week on the IR sick, so
Yeah,
was not doing good. I would say that was probably one of the worst colds I've had in like 3, 4 years. So just being able to
gotcha.
actually like get a voice back and talk again, like I lost
Sure.
my voice completely, is a good thing for sure. Was good to get down to the Scotiabank Arena and cover the game as well yesterday. Obviously, the Flyers have not been doing so hot. Not too great in terms of their
Yeah.
recent performances. 7-2 loss to the Leafs. Just in general, the losses have been piling up for this team essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Since, after the trade deadline, all the roster removals. So, in terms of positivity, I mean, there's not too much to get into. I would say that later in the show we're going into some more prospect talk, so that's going to be
Yeah.
more interesting. Obviously, to start off though, it'll be more about what's happening with the current team, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. So to Vasili's point, we're gonna start off with the more negative stuff to start and kind of what's going on recently, and then things will get progressively more positive as the show goes on. So we're gonna address the elephant in the room to start, and then we'll move things forward. Before we get started, I just want to do my usual spiel. Just want to remind everybody who's listening to please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell for notifications, get notified of when we release these episodes because we do them kind of on random times. Anytime between Sunday and Wednesday, we record. So, yeah, you got to keep you on your toes a little bit. The notification bell will help. For the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a follow and a rating there as well. Again, this is the best way to support our podcast. If you haven't done that so far, please do so now. We truly, truly appreciate it. And also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to go check out Jim Steaks and get yourself a cheesesteak. Also, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help you facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible and deal with all the headaches that come with dealing with insurance companies. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also want to give a brief shout out to our partner, SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, make sure to check out Sports Spider. Our stuff is pinned at the top. SportsSpider.com. The link is in the description. All right. So, elephant in the room. Flyers are getting their butts kicked. They have won, what, one game over the last 12 or 13? I forgot to check prior to the show. Ironically, against one of the best teams in the league. Their best games have actually been against the best teams in the league, which is also kind of funny. But overall, they've just kind of been getting their butts kicked. And what I've been
Yeah,
saying is they're,
just
well, I've been just saying that they are completely demoralized as a team.
yeah. Oh, of course. I mean, they're just to add, right? They're 1-10-1 in the last 12.
That's it. Yeah.
They've been outscored 52-21 over
Ugh.
that span. So they've been almost over doubled up in terms of
Yeah.
goals
It's
versus goals
noticeable.
against.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a lot of blowouts. There was a stretch there where there was almost like 9 or 10 periods where they didn't score a goal as well earlier. So just at this point, right, like the team is obviously spiraling. Um, just being there around them in the locker room after the loss, you can tell these players are getting frustrated. They're demoralized. Like last week, there were some decent games that they played, right? Like the game against Dallas, that's one of the best teams in the league. They didn't, play a bad game, but they just don't get the result, right? So when you're a team like this that realistically there's not a lot for them to look forward to for the rest of the season, it's kind of tough, I would imagine, to continue to pile the losses up when there isn't really anything positive to hang your hat on in terms of results or wins over this last stretch, right? Because their last win was that shootout W against Tampa Bay, and that's almost over a couple weeks at this point, or a week and a half. So it's been a little bit for the team.
Yeah, no, well said. And again, I think demoralized is the right word. A lot of people are going to say they've given up and all that. I think it's just it goes back to the fact that they weren't doing that poorly. They were still kind of in that bubble place. They get two of their core roster guys removed with Frost and Farabee. The two guys who are coming to replace them don't show up for a while. Then one of them, the younger one, stays. The one who's making a larger impact is traded shortly after. Johnson's removed from the team. They're one of their key leaders in Scott Lawton leaves the team after outside of Coots being the longest tenure flyer. So a large piece of the identity of the room is gone, and then the losing just compiles on top of that. So I think it's all together, and there was like definitely some bad luck in there, but then some of it is just everything all in one. And now we're kind of find ourselves at the point where the Flyers kind of get a walloping from the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I knew they would lose that game. I didn't assume it was going to be 7-2 in the end. I thought they got their kind of, their bugger of a game, the one against Chicago, which also I thought that was actually a game that they won. They lost that game as well, even though they played well in like the first half, I guess. Well, I guess. They don't look like the same team. They're definitely mentally struggling through this. I did see some people like insinuating that they kind of given up. I don't think they've given up. I think they're just demoralized. I think they've been taking a beating. They have a tough coach. We're going to talk about that in a second. They have a tough coach who's demanding a lot of them. They have a lot of core guys, removed from the roster. They recognize the sign from the GM, what that means. And I think, confidence is huge in sports. It's maybe even the number one signifier when you get at the top level where everybody's talented. It's like confidence is key. And right now they don't have a lot of it.
It's lacking 100%, right?
It's
Like if
it's
you
definitely
see their
lacking.
if you see their game right now in terms of just the way they're playing, they don't seem confident in a lot of the plays that they're making. Like the execution isn't there, right? And when the execution isn't there for me, it's not necessarily an effort problem because I think these guys are trying and they do care. It's just that once that one thing goes wrong, it just seems like everything's spiraling for them and they're kind of getting in their own heads a little bit in terms of being able to make these plays that they typically would be able to, right? So
Sure.
it's almost like they start off in a decent place in the game against the Leafs. They do open up the scoring, I believe. Yeah, Paling opened up the scoring. And then after that, essentially it was 1-1 and they had an opportunity to maybe even take the lead. And then Couturier fans on a shot, goes the other way, ends up in the back of their net. Then it's 3-1 all of a sudden. And Couturier mentioned that in his presser, right? That we were dominating that shift. We had a really great scoring chance, turns around on us in a second. And it's almost like a bad luck type of play and ends up in the back of their net. And that's, I think, been the tail of the tape for them these last couple of weeks where pretty much any breakdown that they've had has also ended up in the net. So it's hard when you're a team that, first of all, they're not the best team right now in the league in terms of creating scoring chances, developing high quality danger chances, being able to score and capitalize on the chances they do create. So hypothetically, right, if you are having issues with that, and then you couple in the fact that you have the league's worst save percentage right now, and you're not getting really much support in terms of saves from a Fedotov, from a Urson. Obviously, the defense, has a part to play too. There's missed coverages, there's giveaways. We'll get into all that. So it's all compounding. But like, if you can't get a save as a team too, that's going to be a huge, shot to your confidence and your ability to play in front of your goalies effectively and confidently. So I think the goaltending plays a lot into it as well for me.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree. I think it's everything compounding together. And I think Danny Briere, I don't think he knew it would be this bad, but I think he suspected that the team would take a step back
Oh, of
doing what
course.
he did. I think that's kind of why it was like they wait to the last second with Lawton, right? They did move the guys at the end kind of early, with Frost and Farabee, but the team already took a hit at that point. Like, excuse me. I think they knew that it would kind of come to this to some degree. I think they knew they would stumble and fall in the standings. I don't think they knew it would look this bad. But I think Briere was mentally prepared for kind of what's going on. And this is also, people talk about tanking and all that stuff, and this is why tanking has such a high cost because this happens to teams who do tank and you demoralize your roster on a repeated basis. That's why I do not believe we're going into next season with the same attitude of just removing players from the roster because that's primarily all Briere has done since getting here is just removing from the roster. And I think it's just starting to catch up. Um, and I think as a player, I think or a former player, I think he's well aware of that, of what it would do to the room. So, all that coming to a head and, like the goaltending itself, like how many games did the Flyers lose this year because of goaltending alone, right? What and the
Over maybe 10 or 15 to be
right.
honest, which is a
And
lot.
and you could say the
So,
same thing about last year too, when Ersson was playing well, Hart leaves the team right early in the season, and then they're searching for a backup the whole season. They can't find a backup goalie. They probably lost another 10. It's the biggest reason they didn't make the playoffs, that and including the power play. And this year it's the same story. You know, power play is non-existent. We're going to talk about that in a second, but in a couple minutes here.
yeah.
But yeah, the goaltending not being able to stand on its head, and the PK not being top five in the league, right? Like this is kind of what happens, and they removed talent from the roster. And I like Jacob Peltier. I think actually he's shown a lot better of late, but he's not going to replace the players
Well,
that left.
he seems like an energy guy, obviously more of a guy that's gonna be in your bottom six just based on the way he's playing. Like there might be a little bit of scoring touch there. We see him set up Paling for that goal last night, and that was a
Sure,
nice setup from him. I think like the ceiling's a third liner, but to try to put him on a new team like this and expect him to produce and be a real
not going to
contributor
be
at
a
the end of
difference maker.
yeah,
Yeah.
at the end of a season like this, it's just not something that's realistic. And I guess just to end this off before we get into the Torts talk of it, during
Yeah.
the 6 game losing streak right now, they are averaging 1.66 goals a game,
Ugh.
4.50 goals against per game.
Oh my
They've been
God.
shut out twice and are 0 for 15 on the power play. And that's just over the 6 game losing streak. Obviously, like they're 110-1. And throughout March, they've yet to score any power play goals. So it's pretty bad right now. But I think as a fan, if you're looking at this and thinking what is the end game and what's the end result of this all, I think obviously the better draft pick is something to keep an eye on, right? Like
Right.
nobody wants to see the team performing like this. These games are difficult to watch. I mean, but when you look at it and look at where the Flyers are, moving up in that ability to select a higher draft pick is going to be beneficial for their future, right? Like selecting, let's say they were a bubble team hypothetically here. If you were going to select at the 15 to 12 range, is that really the type of pick that they need to add, especially with the center depth issues, right? Like if you can get in that 7-1 range and maybe get your center, it could work out all for the best. So although it's, pain now, there could be benefit in the future from this pain,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
and if you guys have been listening to us for a while, how long, Vasili? We've probably been saying this for 2 years already. That it was that they were lined up for this off season, the whole
And
time,
next, yeah.
and that yes, but like that this would be like the kind of the beginning of that. The next one, obviously, being the big one.
I would say this is like the shift into the phase of the plan where okay, we're not subtracting anymore. This offseason, we're finally starting to add pieces and like
Yes.
shape and build the roster,
Yes,
right?
and again, I think that goes again more. If you want more evidence of that, look at what Briere just did, knowing he would drop in the standings, knowing that his team would take this hit, and that they're very conscious of how long they want to do this for. They don't want this to continue, right? So they kind of did set this up, and we're going to talk a little bit about the draft at the end, but know that next week, I think it's the first or the second. I
I believe
can't
the
remember.
first.
It's the
April
first,
Fools,
yeah.
everybody.
Yeah, April 1st, we're going to have Steve Cornianos and we're going to talk about prospects. We'll probably talk a little bit about the draft, but then we'll do a full draft
Yeah.
episode as we get closer to the
And
draft.
that'll be a legitimate episode. It's not actually an April Fool's joke.
Right. Yeah. Good point. Yeah, yeah, big one. So you mentioned Torts, great transition. So obviously there was I guess the big drama during the game where Cam York makes I'm not going to say it's a lazy play. I still think his shoulder is hindering him. He doesn't battle enough behind the net, gets beat, and then doesn't fight hard enough around the net. And then the puck goes off of him and into the net. And then after that, he doesn't see another shift. So he gets benched for pretty much 50 minutes of the game.
Yeah, he plays 350 in total. So
Right. He plays almost nothing. And again, in a game where they're already outgunned and York is their second best defenseman, especially with Risto being out of the lineup. And, the team's already demoralized. That probably turns the knife a little bit. The game's 1-1 at that point, but then the game completely falls off the rails. And Tortorella probably overreacted. I think everybody would be okay with like somewhat of a benching in the game, but to sit him out the whole game
no,
definitely seemed excessive.
get sat from the first. Let's get sat in the first period is my thoughts. Have a discussion during the intermission. Throw him back out there. See what happens. If the same
Yeah,
occurs, then maybe you go ahead with it. But
and
obviously,
it probably wouldn't
obviously,
have.
yeah, exactly. But obviously, from his perspective, he probably feels like this result doesn't matter for us as a team. The point I'm trying to make to Cam York is more important to the long term, future of this team and what he
Sure.
can be for this team. So that's probably what he's thinking from his
Yes.
perspective. Do I agree with it though? Not really, especially considering you just benched him a couple of weeks ago. So if you need to get that message across, and you didn't just bench him in a game a couple of weeks ago, you healthy scratched him. So I mean, why wasn't that message communicated enough, or why didn't it get across, a couple of weeks ago? And Chris Pronger brought this up that like, the communication seems to be lacking. Cam York said he wasn't sure of what he did wrong. So did they ever really go back and go over that and address what happened? Because this seems like it's stemming from that situation. So to me, it feels like it's like just a scenario that's kind of unresolved and left to fester. Then this mistake comes up and then this occurs, right?
Yeah. I also think he's turning the knife on the team. Like they already have pain, and it just felt like that was just like, hey, like
Well, it's
I
almost
guess it's e
conceding to a team like the Leafs. Like you're already like you said, they're one of the most offensively talented teams in the league. You as a team have the worst save percentage right now in the whole league. You're struggling to score. You know they can score a lot of goals. So for you, like as the Flyers, to win this game, you're going to need to first of all shut them down defensively, probably score more than 3 or 4 goals to
yeah.
win. And you taking York out of that situation, I think just shows and tells the team that hey, like we're losing this one, guys. Like we're conceding on this.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
I'm
perspective,
I'm
but
sure that he wouldn't say that, though I do agree with your point. But I think a lot of it is just, you thought he would have learned from the Michkov situation where he admitted that he shouldn't have benched Michkov the whole game. It's just like it's one shift towards
yeah.
it's one shift,
I
dude.
wonder if it's because, Michkov's a rookie and he thinks of it that way, where York is more of an established
Yeah,
veteran. He's
well,
expecting more from him at this point.
no,
But
100%. I think that's the case. But I also think like, didn't York build goodwill for you
with last
all of
season,
last
yeah.
season where you called him the best defenseman on the team? And then, now you just, now you're kind of like jumping on him. It's eating at the rest of the roster. You benched everybody on the
I'm sure
roster.
it makes it uncomfortable, obviously. So
Yeah, and it is uncomfortable regardless. But I feel like in that moment, maybe just recognize that your team is demoralized, and
yeah.
maybe in his mind, he's like, "Oh, this is how I'm going to combat that." Is that I'm going to show, "Hey, don't take your foot off the pedal, or I'll bench you," right? Because like you can't. Because the thing that Torts 100% right about is that like if they were fighting for a playoff spot, and that would have been the case, nobody would be questioning the benching, right? If they were
No,
in the
no.
playoffs, you would be like, yeah, well, because you cannot play that way in the playoffs ever. You take one shift like that and do a play, it ends up in the back of your net every single time. So he's not. It's one of those things where like Torts is not wrong. He's just like kind of a maniac, He's kind of like he's still him till the very end,
Well, he's
right? So
trying to
like,
teach him something, obviously. He's trying to,
yeah,
he's hoping by doing this. And I tried to ask him in the press conference to
yeah.
get something out of him to see what his reasoning was. Obviously, he does not comment. I mean, that's probably expected at this point. I wasn't expecting him to comment, but you never know, right? So I figured, why not ask, see what happens. But he declined to comment. I feel for York and just the benching in general. Like, sure, you're trying to teach him a lesson, but I just think the circumstance that you're in, there's might be a better way to do it, right? Especially the fact that you scratched him a few weeks back. Like, why? isn't this message already gotten across? Like, what else are you needing to communicate to him? So that's kind of where I'm thinking, okay, the coaching staff and York need to do something here to get on the same page because obviously they're not aligned in whatever is happening, right? Like
Yeah.
they seem like they're in different spots. So I don't really know. Like, obviously, York is a guy that is up to be re-signed. I don't think that this puts a wrench in any of that. Like, I expect him to be re-signed by the Flyers, but I would imagine that, this um issue that's going on between him and Tortorella is something that they're going to want to fix fairly soon. So I'm really interested to see what's going to happen in the next game, and even the next practice the Flyers have, just to see if like anything is addressed in regards to this. So,
Yeah, no, and the contract situation is also interesting that kind of looms over it. I agree with your sentiment that, I do expect him to be re-signed, but it's like you said, you don't want this kind of festering and Tortorella, you can tell like he's trying, and the last game just felt like a complete fumble. And I'm gonna have you read off his quote because I know you have it in front of you. But obviously, even during the press conference itself, it's like he's trying to, and you're obviously in front of him at the time. He's trying to defend the team and take the onus on himself, and even that he stumbled with. And I have never for a second thought that Tortorella was not going to be the coach of this season, but the closest I have ever gotten to it was after hearing that quote. And I do, like kind of thinking about it, hearing it again, I'm kind of like, okay, like I think it's being somewhat misconstrued.
people are reading a lot into it. I don't think he
Yeah,
exactly meant what was
right.
said, but
I think so.
nonetheless, it's still something that, as a coach, you know where you are, right? Like, you're in Toronto, it's the media hub for the NHL. You know a quote like that's going to get blown out of proportion. So, like, I mean, as the coach, that's kind of on you to manage that, right? Like, what he's trying to do is take the onus off the team. So you're talking about him. That's the classic Tortorella.
Which is what
Um,
happened.
yeah, that's the classic Tortorella, ploy, right? Like, blow up in the media, something happens in the media. Sure, my team lost 7-2. I mean, we're addressing that the Flyers are stinking right now, but nobody else is really caring about that. They're talking about the quote. So technically, he's taking the focus off the team, but this one for me is one that paints him as the coach in a murky waters because you wouldn't say something like that unless you're almost unsure about your status going ahead in a sense, right?
Right. Well, I think he misspoke. I think he was trying to say, I don't want to go through this type of stuff regularly.
Again.
Like, we need to
Yeah.
fix this. Not so much that I'm out of here if this doesn't get fixed.
Agreed.
But I do think it's something he has to address publicly. And if he's not doing it publicly, at the very least, he's got to address the players to be like, hey, that is not what I meant. And
Yeah.
if it is what he meant, he will not be the coach
I
of this team
I
next
I
year.
think it's just
But
I think it's just
yeah,
frustration, right? Like, Charlie
yes.
O'Connor obviously asked the question, and he essentially stated to Torts, like, do you think even though the team's been playing well the last week or so, is the cumulative effect of all these losses just adding up and kind of demoralizing the team and the frustration setting in? Tortorella answered in this way. He stated, "This falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. So this falls on me, getting the team prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end." And just to add, like, before this question, I asked him about, like, does the team need to simplify things? Do they need to just try to, play a simple game the rest of the way? He just said he doesn't think the team was ready and that this falls on him. He needs to do a better job of getting the team ready. And then just to add on to that, this is kind of, what I think everybody was looking at and thinking about, like, what does he mean by this, right? Like, how to coach in this type of season. Um, yeah, sorry.
That's all right. Take your
I think
time.
I lost the quote there, guys. My mistake on that. Um, So let me read it again. Yeah, this falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. So this falls on me getting the team prepared to play the proper way until we get to the end, right? So that was the full quote. I think just the interested in learning how to coach in this type of season, like him saying I'm not interested in doing it, that's kind of your job, right? Like, obviously the team's going through this stretch. Nobody wants it to be happening. But him saying, I'm not interested in learning how to coach a team that's in this state, I think is what gets everybody in a frenzy. I think what he means though is that I just didn't think that the team would be here in this spot right now. So I wasn't prepared to be coaching this team in this type of situation that they're in. I think that it was a bit of a surprise to him, maybe.
Yeah, I think it could be. And this, again, this is the problem with this quote, is that it's so open for interpretation. The way I interpret it, just understanding what I do about Tortorella, is that he's like, this is this is not where I want our team to be in general. Like, I want our team to be competing.
In
Like,
the mix, yeah.
I'm not interested in being a bad team. And I think that even that word of not interested is not, if unless he truly means that, I don't think that that's what he meant. My guess is that he kind of meant like none of us are interested in playing these type of games. We were interested in where we thought we were going, right, as a team, and now everybody has kind of been flattened by it, including him, right? Like I think even Tortorella might be somewhat demoralized, right? Because he knows the end of his career is or on the horizon. He doesn't want to go out, at the bottom of the league with the team that's kind of crumbling on him, right? Like I don't think he wants this to be his last season
Or
to
the
go
yeah,
out this way
the last I guess stretch that he coaches, right, is going to be a team that's basically at the bottom of the barrel.
and never
Like you
makes the
said,
playoffs.
yeah, 1-10-1. They've never made the playoffs under him. So I think obviously a goal for him is at least before this tenure ends, probably to make the playoffs. I mean, is that going to happen? Is there going to be a chance to do that? I'm really not sure. But we'll have to see going ahead, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, we've brought this up so many times already, but the power play is really holding this team back. I mean, you people can talk about the goaltending, fine. Okay, get it. Totally. Goaltending wasn't good this year. But man, that power play again, I don't know if it's ranked below 30th at this point in the league. It's just not scoring. And it's once again, and he defends Rocky Thompson. Coaches very rarely throw their assistant coaches under the bus, but I do not understand. And I talked about this by myself when you weren't on here, Vasili. It's like I do not understand how you could go into next season with the same coach running the power play. And
Yeah.
if they're actually going to bring in a replacement potentially for Tortorella, do they bring in a guy early and have him coach from the press box and coach the power play and then be like, hey, Torts is retiring at the end of the year. You're going to be taking over, so learn the team now, type of thing. I don't know how realistic that is, but the idea that this team is going to come back, because the reality is that not only was this power play better when Michkov was running it and it kind of was trying to figure things out, but it was kind of just allowing Michkov to run the power play, which is what was happening in the beginning of the year. It has been so much worse as the season has gotten on. So even if Briere could say, "Oh, it improved percentage wise," and it didn't finish at 32nd, right? A
Well, it's
historic
30th
low,
right now.
right?
So
Even if it finishes at 30th, right? It's actually getting worse as the season goes on. So it's actually regressing back to the historic low and might finish 32nd, anywhere near that.
it's possible.
That is not a real improvement. So as Briere, and again, I feel like I've been pretty good at understanding his mindset. It's like I don't understand how they can go in. I think you can go in with Tortorella being like it's his last year. He's gonna, there's gonna be a bunch of new players probably. He's gonna reestablish the Tort mentality for one more season. But the idea that you're gonna go in the next season with the same power play strategies, the same lack of vision, the same disorganization, and continue to hamper yourself when you know you want to be more entertaining and more competitive next year. I don't see it. I really don't see it. I hate blaming one guy, one coach for everything. I don't like doing that. But the reality is
Um,
that Thompson has not been the guy when it comes to the power play. I'm not going to talk about him at even strength. He does do work at even strength. I don't think he's been bad
well,
at even strength, but power play wise, it's been bad.
yeah, I mean,
At best, mediocre.
there's no other way to put it other than abysmal, right? Like they haven't scored a goal on the power play in the month of March.
He doesn't
It's
have answers.
Yeah, it's a franchise record at this point. Like they're 0 for 32 on the power play. It's a franchise record. That's the worst and the longest stretch they've ever gone without scoring a power play goal. So when you put in that perspective, the fact that you're beating records based on how terrible this power play is, there obviously needs to be a change. I would say just in terms of the power play and puzzling and concerning to me about it is you're a coaching staff right now. It's not like the team's playing for much. They're playing the power play so safe and not changing anything up on it. You would think you would at least try to,
Well,
switch some.
they tried
But
the five forwards thing.
yeah, they did do that, but I'm saying like the setup is the same on the power play. It's the 1-3-1. You've been running the 1-3-1 on your power play for 3.5, 4 seasons, and it's been almost the worst in the league every year. Why don't you run it from behind the net where you have a Matvei Michkov who excels at creating scoring chances from around and behind the net? Like just think of a change in just how you're approaching it, right? Like maybe they are saying this behind closed doors, and these guys can just not get into the zone and set it up. That's a problem too. And some of the onus has to fall on the players in the sense that they need to execute as well. But I just think as a combined unit, the coaching staff has just not done enough to change anything because it just looks the same to me in terms of, what's happening out there. And also, I mean, we can say York's not playing well at all, but he was one of the best UNTDP power play players, and they just never give him a
Uh,
chance ever.
You know,
So,
I've been saying this for like 4 months already.
well, it's just
Uh,
like the power play stinks. So why not just try him anyway and see what happens, right?
yeah. Well, again, I go back to the way I judge a power play, and I've said this for a while already. When everybody was saying it was a talent problem, it was a talent problem, and I completely disagreed with
They
that.
can't set it
It,
up right now, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
See, but okay, that's the root of the problem. And I was talking to Jamie earlier, and he was like, "Oh, it's like there's no vision." And I agree with that use of the word vision. But I bring it back to this: when the Flyers had one of the best power plays in the league, they had literally four plays they would execute. There was no more than that. You knew what they were going to do. Everyone knew what they were going to do. Give it to Simmons along the at the side of the net. He would give it to Giroux. Giroux would take it back to the point where there would be ghost, and it would literally be that same play. And then they would utilize Voracek either on the back door, or he would cycle back to Giroux into ghost. Like it was the same plays every time, but executed with speed and precision. I have yet to see that at all.
Well, there's not a lot of
Make
decisiveness, and for
Right, but
me,
but
yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me just finish this thought. That is the crux of the problem is that I think that Thompson is putting them in situations where he's like, look, you will have all these options. If you're here, 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 it's like we don't need all of these options. We need four options on the power play, and we need to have them available for each scenario when they're cut off and to revert back to them. And to only like again, I'll use the Capitals. They don't have a ton of plays on their power play. Everybody knows the play that they're going to use. They're going to pass it to Ovechkin, who's going to one time it. And it works. Why? Because it's just executed to
Well,
perfection.
that's what I kind of wanted to say. Like, I just think there's no decisiveness in the power play. Like, nobody is aware of what play is happening or what they should be doing or where they should be going. So if you're
Exactly.
not confident in the structure and like what the actual strategy is and what you should be doing, then that's kind of where a lot of this stems from. But I think that and just the fact they can't set it up on the power play in general. Like we're gonna have to see, right? Like this is one of the worst power plays ever. I think there has to be some sort of repercussions for this coaching
Right.
staff due to that.
You would
Obviously,
do it
in
to a player, right?
yeah, that's the thing, right? Like you have accountability for these players on the ice, but where's the accountability for the staff, right? So I think here, like these last people can say whatever they want. These last final 10 games or 9 games left don't really matter.
Nine.
For
Yeah.
me, I would say how this team responds now after that Leafs loss and then after those comments by Tortorella, I think that's really important. Like if they continue to spiral in this manner and just look completely lost, who knows? I think this whole coaching staff is potentially at the risk of getting let go because there comes a certain point, no matter, if you think Torch can get things back on track next year, if you remove certain players and the roster is different, there comes a certain point where the players that are still here, are no longer going to have faith in the coach and what's being asked of them from a strategical perspective. And then you kind of lose that, right? I don't think it's the fact they're not trying. I just think that it's the fact that, hey, we're trying to execute this way, but we're not buying into what's being sold to us anymore because it's just not working, which it
Yeah.
isn't. It hasn't been, right? So
Yeah.
we'll have to see what happens, but it's like anything, right? In sports, when you lose for a consistent amount of time for a prolonged period, um, there's always going to be repercussions at the end of a
Repercussions.
season, right? It
Yeah.
just is what it is.
At the highest level, 100%. And I would hate to lose Shaw. And that's the only thing. If Tortorella is fired, let's just say, which I don't think he will be, But if he is fired, that means Shaw is probably going with him, and I don't think anybody wants to lose Brad Shaw.
Potentially. I mean, I think if Torts ends up getting fired, like personally, what I think will happen, and this is my perspective on it, I think he might move up into some other role. Maybe they get a replacement for him. I just don't like personally the idea of, oh, let's go into one more season with a lame duck coach. I think you set yourself up for failure doing that. Just as an organization, right? Like you're trying to
Yeah.
build here. Why not get somebody in here that can place the long-term vision? It's obviously not going to be Tortorella beyond next season, so you might as well get a head start on it. But we'll see what happens, anyways.
Unless they I agree with that statement. I think it's a very good point. My whole thing is they love Tortorella's attitude, and I don't know if they're like, yeah, but we're gonna do this one more year, and everybody's gonna know that it's his last year, and he's gonna retire, with like honor, right? We're not kicking him out. We're not doing any of that to him. We're just kind of be like, look, we're moving in a different direction, but we want you to like keep your stamp on this team, keep being tough on them, you know, and we want to keep Shaw around too. So you'll be in the organization. Shaw will still be running the D, and we're going to bring in a new head coach. But again, the problem always comes with a new head coach comes a new staff. So, they'll have to figure it out. This is why I think they might kick the can down the road till the end of the year and just wait it out. And I do think for a GM, being patient strategically, not being patient just for patience sake, but being patient with a plan pays off. So, but we'll see. I think you definitely bring up a good point. A lame duck with losing a locker room, that's definitely not going to work.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's the thing.
that's definitely not going to work.
That's why I said this response in these final games here is important, right? Because if they come back and they finish out strong, you could tell that the team is trying to rally itself and try to at least go out on a strong note. Then you can tangibly look at it and say, hey, like they haven't quit on this coach. They're trying to put something together here. They don't have the talent to do it. They're still losing, but like they're not getting blown out every single night, right? Like if you go these last 10 games and you consistently get blown out like 7-1 every night, like that's concerning. Like
Yeah.
you cannot go into next season. It doesn't matter who the coach is and what standard it is. Like the players just will not believe in that going forward based on all the losing that occurred previously, right?
Yeah,
So
and one thing that I think about with Torts, which does make me want him gone, and maybe it's not the one that most people think about, is I think about how important it is that the captain, and especially without Lawton being here now, who's like,
and the coach get along.
not even just get along, is that they are, because I think Tortorella and Couturier get along. I think he respects Couturier, but I think like he needs to be the mouthpiece, the captain for the coach, like in a way. Like that's why Keith Primo was so successful here. Him and Ken Hitchcock were like this, and when Primo got hurt, Ken Hitchcock was done here. And if you look at Lawton now, not being in that room with Tortorella being here, it's like that bridge of communication isn't necessarily there because he didn't build that with Couturier. He built it with Lawton, obviously, which is not good because the actual leader of the team for years before Tortorella has been here
Is Couturier.
is
Yeah.
Sean Couturier. He's
Well, and also
always been.
the same thing happened right here with York where he got benched. He wasn't sure about the communication last season. Obviously, they went through it, but the same thing happened where he benched the captain and he wasn't sure why he got benched. Obviously,
Right.
they went
That's
over it and they talked about it and it's all okay now. But it is a good point to bring up that are there still like remnants of Couturier, maybe even looking back at that situation and saying, hey, like I don't know how tenable the situation is with this coach going ahead. Who really knows what he's thinking as a player? So it's interesting for sure. Like I do think that you remove Lawton. Obviously, the locker room has gotten weaker. I mean, there's no denying that, right? So
which was the fear. That was the fear.
how now does this team respond after all these losses? Are they able to kind of turn things around to end the season? I think that's going to be a telling sign into whether or not Tortorella and the staff come back. At least
Yeah.
that's it for me.
Well, and I think a big thing that Briere is relying on is like, okay, I did this for 20 games, right? It's painful. It's gonna hurt things, but I know I have the offense to add, or the off season to add, right?
Yeah.
I have the ability to add two or three veterans to this room to restabilize everything. Maybe Tortorella won't be the coach or whatever, but that feeling that these players have of abandonment, which is probably how they feel, right? Where they're kind of like left high and dry to some degree. There's talent removed from their lineup. They're already a team that couldn't win off of talent. They had to outwork every opposition, and also play with their depth, right? Four lines that could attack. That's the reason that they were successful last year. That is not in their repertoire right now. So I think Briere is relying on the fact that I have the off season to fix this, regardless of who is coach. Um, but we'll see. So the other big thing is obviously the goaltending. I think I would say 90% of people have given up on Fedotov, which I don't think is very fair because he is a rookie. He is an older rookie. But I think a lot of people don't expect him back. And I think a big reason is just because Ersson hasn't been as reliable as we were hoping. I think you picked him as the team MVP, right? And I picked him as most improved for
Yeah.
the beginning of the year.
Well,
And,
he was starting out really well and playing really well. Then that injury happened and kind of just fell off the rails from that point.
Yes. And he's had some spurts where he did look very good this year, but he's been inconsistent. So a lot of people are kind of downgrading him from that 1A to a 1B now. And, a lot of people think we need a change in net. Flyers clearly recognize this to some degree. They have called up Kolosov as their last call up, which I think is a head scratcher to a lot of people because he was playing really well with the Phantoms. I do want to counteract that. The only reason I could think that they're doing this really is that Carson Bjarnason is most likely inbound to the Phantoms and will probably get announced coming over to
Possibly.
the Phantoms, and that they want him playing rather than sitting in the press box. Having said that, it is a little weird that they use their last call up, and then not even put him out, in a uniform against Toronto. So they're still going to kind of finish the season here with three rotating goalies. It shows a desperation. That's all I'm saying. Where they're like, it's not good how leaky things are. Maybe we can squeeze two or three good games out of Kolosov. But even though it's not what I would imagine is the smartest play, there has to be something done here. And I don't know if they convince Fedotov to leave, if they go with trying to buy him out, if they try to trade him, or if they just eat him, as an extra contract in the organization. They go with three goalies, which I don't think is a good idea. And they try to bring somebody else in. Also, remember, everybody in free agents probably going to want term. So even if you find somebody, it's going to be somebody who's willing to not take term or serious term. So it's going to be one of the worst options or older options. But also that might be better than what we're watching right now. Because I don't think that they have removed Ersson from the conversation. They don't think of Kolosov as a prospect, which I think they do. So they want Kolosov to develop, and I think they still believe in Ersson. So that kind of leaves Fedotov as being the oldest guy, as the option to move
Yeah,
out.
he's the odd man out for me. Like
Yeah,
I would
bring
say
in a
Fedot
different vet.
I would say for Fedotov at this point, it's just the coaching staff can't trust him. Like you saw him against the Blackhawks, like he was
But he
not
also
good.
played excellent against Tampa Bay.
No, yeah, for sure. But
It's so weird,
I
right?
just think there's no consistency, and that's what they can't deal with anymore. Where it's like from a game to game basis, we have no idea what we're getting, and we just can't rely on that, right? At least with
Sure.
Urson and with Kolosov, there's a base. Like, oh, these guys are bad tonight. They might let in 5 or 6. With like Fedotov, he might let in 12 if he's bad one night, right? So like, there's no in between. I just think Tortorella, in my opinion, probably maybe went to Briere or the coaching staff in general maybe went to him and just said, hey, like I can't put this guy in anymore. Every time we put him out there, we're basically just etching a loss in. Give me somebody else to play for the rest of the season. And
And he's
then
like
here's Kolosov.
the only person I have is Kolosov, who again didn't play every game poorly, but he's also been incredibly inconsistent. He's been rushed
Yeah.
into the
But I
we don't
think they just think it's a better option than Fedotov at this point. So, hey, give me something, give me somebody I can put in the net other than Urson for the remainder of the season that isn't Fedotov. I think that's basically
yeah. Well,
that's basically the situation
and
for
it's
me.
probably observe them at practice and see who's the hottest and go with that guy. And see if they can find some
It can't
stability in
get
the back
worse. I
end.
mean, like we were saying, right? This is the worst save percentage that, the or worst save percentage in the league, right? To this date. So it can't get worse. I think their hope is that you put Fedotov or put Kolosov in over Fedotov, and hopefully in those games where he does play over him, you get a couple more saves, things stay a little bit more competitive in the games, and just the team doesn't fall off the rails and get into that demoralized state. I think that's the ultimate goal here is you just don't want this team to continue to spiral. So if you have Fedotov in there, is that just going to compound that and add to it, right? So I think that's probably what the coaching staff is looking at. I mean, in terms of the long-term solution, I think it's pretty obvious to me what their path will be going forward. I believe that they'll probably have Urson in a split situation. The goal will likely be to sign some sort of a veteran goaltender to pair with him, and then you have Kolosov knocking on the door for the season
So
after. But we'll
So
see.
yeah, let me list the goalies out. I didn't plan on doing this, but so these are the UFAs available, and I'll say their age too. Robin Lehner, who's
Oh,
not,
he's done. Yeah.
yeah, he's done. Is top of the list here. Jake Allen is 34.
To be
Again,
honest, that'd be an interesting one.
yeah, he's 34 years old.
But he's
Again,
good in a tandem. He's not bad on the Devils. I think just to have like a veteran guy for your young goalies to
right,
be there who's been in the league, it's not the worst
right.
choice.
That is definitely the thought. Gorgiev, who's 29.
I don't know
Uh,
about that.
and again, these guys were all making above 3 million. Vitek Vanacek, 29. Frederick Anderson, who's injury problems, the best goalie on the list, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe they take a flyer on somebody like that and give him a 1 year deal. He's 35. Anton Forsberg, who's a decent goaltender. He's
Ottawa will
32.
probably bring him back, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Flurry, and again, that's also a good point. Is like some of these guys are going to be re-signed. Marc-Andre
He
Fleury is
is retiring.
retiring.
Yeah.
Dan Vladar, Ilya Samsonov, who's I don't know what's going to happen with him. David Riddick, he's 32. James Reimer, 37.
To be honest, Reimer, I mean, that's a veteran option, but he's getting up there in age, so.
Alex Lyon, which I think maybe is the most realistic, is a guy who would sign a shorter term deal.
Lion. I mean, I think, like I said, I like Allen, but I have a feeling that New Jersey would try to resign him. Like he's been good in
Right.
a backup role for them. But at least, I guess, if for some reason he is a UFA, maybe you can make the pitch that okay, New Jersey to Philly
Well,
isn't really a big move. But
realistically, the type of goalie we'd be looking at is a guy trying to make a name for himself and is willing to sign a 1 to 2 year deal because whoever we're bringing in, they don't most likely don't want them in long term if they're a veteran,
no,
especially because they believe in Erson, and they have Kolosov in the system still. And that's pretty much it. That's like the big names. Restricted free agent wise, I can look at that list real quick.
I will say though, all those guys, like realistically, right? If we're thinking about backups, I mean, they're all probably a better option than Fedotov. It sounds bad to say that, but it probably is all an upgrade, right? So.
Yeah, potentially. And again, from the restricted free agents, these guys are all under 25, and none of us know who they are. So again, that doesn't leave you in a better situation. Um, Danil Tarasov, again, he's 25. He's probably not going anywhere, I guess. Soderblom, I do know him. Playing Chicago, bad numbers, but he does have 8 wins, 17 losses. Jakob Dobis from Montreal.
Yeah, I
This is
mean
my point. It's
now we're just
like,
getting into guys you don't know. You might as well stick with the familiarity on your own roster. I just think those initial veterans you mentioned, maybe a chance. But I do see them signing somebody. Like I can't see them coming back with this tandem. So something's gonna happen. Maybe the trade happens. Who knows, right?
yeah, I mean, and that if you really want to make a change, the trade would have to be it, and you'd have to move because you still have Fedotov's contract. So theoretically, you could eat 50% of his contract and move him in a trade, and a team could bury him at 50% and only lose like a few $100,000 in cap hit. So, that is the thought. The other thought is, does Fedotov just move on and go make
Yeah.
similar money in? But I can't see Fedotov just being like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to go back to Russia a failure or feeling like I failed. I feel like he's going to want to take his second chance at the NHL. So I don't know. It's not That's probably the most difficult thing to solve, especially because they're most likely not gonna make a big move. There is an option of trading Erson in a trade, who he has the value. If they are gonna move a goaltender, there's the option of moving Kolosov in a trade. He has the value. They're not gonna move Bjarnason. They're most likely gonna be signing or drafting another goalie or two this year. And obviously Zavragin they're not touching, and just letting him cook. So they're kind of in a weird place where they might look for a more obscure guy, Nakamiemi. He didn't even get to play this year because of injuries, but they might look for another guy like that who has upside, but just a journeyman guy who just hasn't found his way and that they think could come in and play some good hockey. I don't know. But that's a weird one to fix. And I think you might be right. The trade might be the only real route they have.
Yeah, we'll have to
We'll
see.
see.
Like I said, I think if you're going to stay with Urson, I mean, you at least need to get him some more support as the backup. I just think you can't go in with Kolosov and Fedotov again. It's just you're going to run to the exact same problem, most likely. So,
Most likely. Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess let's start getting into some of the good news. So Matvey Michkov, while the team has been struggling, he has started putting up points again. He has 2 points in the last 2 games. He had an assist again against Toronto. I think he still would have more points if people could bury the puck. Coots and TK both missed perfect passes from him for goals on net. I think maybe TK's was saved. I'm not entirely sure. Um, but again, he did become the rookie leader of the past 25 years. So he passed Simone Gagne. He's sitting 10th overall. He has one more point to tied for 10th amongst Flyers rookies. Again, the power play that he leads all rookies in even strength scoring. The power play has been so bad that realistically, if he had a decent power play to play on, most likely that he would probably be the definitive de facto rookie of the year. And that shows how much this power play has been a burden on this team and how it does not allow the offense to thrive in a lot of the down years that we're seeing. And even the lack of real scoring punch from this team comes and it's stemmed in the power play because even strength, they're kind of like middle of the road. They're like 20. They're not that bad at even strength. It's really 5-on-4, 5-on-3. They're terrible.
Yeah, the power
Um,
play stinks, and it just takes away any momentum that they have
yeah,
at 5-on-5, right? They go on the power play typically, and it just sucks the life out of them. Mishkov's really been the only bright spot on the power play, right? Like typically when something's happening, it's because he's creating or he's
and they don't utilize him
distributing.
enough on it.
Yeah, I mean, he should be running it, but that's going to happen soon enough, right? That's just going to be the natural progression of things as
Yeah,
he continues to grow as a player. But I mean, for him, it's just, and I guess Flyers rookies in general, right? He's the most impressive Flyers rookie in over 20 years. 50 points for him, 51 now, but he's the first since Renberg to even get to a 50-point mark as a rookie. So that's one of the greater stats you want to see for a guy like him coming in. People weren't sure how he was going to produce. I mean, I predicted him having around 60 points. He's kind of on pace to potentially get to that.
well, we
We'll
didn't think the
see.
power play would still be historically bad when we
Yeah,
made
I
our
know. If the
guesses.
power play was decent, I mean, he probably might be at 60 points already. I think the Flyers have about 9 games left this season. Let me just
Yeah,
confirm that.
yeah, 9 games. They're at
Yeah,
73 games
so
played.
in 9 games, I mean, maybe he gets to 60 points. He's got basically 9 games left to get a point per game going forward. So we'll see if he can do it. But I think for Michkov, right, if he could finish this season off with 60 points, that's beyond what you would expect from a rookie, especially playing on such a bad team, right? Like the team has just not been good. They haven't scored a lot. We read the stats earlier about how, their goals per game over the 6 game losing streak, like it's 1.56 or something. Like they just are not scoring. So the fact that, if he's able to go on and get 9 points in the final 9 games, he's basically probably gonna be factoring in on all the goals that they're scoring every game from this on out, just based on what's been happening lately.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Well, let's hope that's not the case. I'd like to see him hit 60. It's going to be tough with the way the team is playing right now to hit 60.
we'll get
But if
close though, I think.
Yeah, but if he can get to like 57, that would be, I think, pretty solid. And again, if they had a decent power play, I think he would have hit 70 points this year,
Probably, yeah.
65 to 70. And that really killed it. But it's nice to see he's still breaking records and, forget the Calder trophy. Would have been cool. But, the fact that we have a gem in Michkov, and again, if you go off of what I said in the beginning of the year, the guys who hit 60 points as rookies tend to be, top five players in their position. And again, if you include the lack of power play productivity of this team, and the fact that people have flubbed so many opportunities he's put on their stick, he probably should have been a plus 65 point player this year. So it's a shame, But hopefully he can get close to it, and that'll still be a cool story no matter what at the end of the year. Already cool, the fact of what he's done. And 25 years since the last guy's able to do what he's done. So, um, it's a long time. It's been a very long time since anybody's done anything like this. And the other positive is Jamie Drysdale, who is again, he had another assist last night. In general, I mean, he was a -4 against Toronto, but he did
I
play
mean, hey,
26
the whole
minutes.
team was basically a minus
Right.
against Toronto.
Yeah.
There's not much you could do.
Yeah. But overall, his numbers have been going up, with 6 goals, which is not like anything to write home about. But, he was on pace for 3 goals on the year. He's hit 6. He has a chance to maybe get to 8 here before the end and surpass 20 points. So at least he's kind of getting up there. It seemed like, a lot of people forgot that he did come in with surgery in the offseason. So we knew it would slow him down in the first half. But now in the second half, he's definitely been better. He's been played over 20 minutes for the last 5 games, 22
Yeah, is
minutes,
it more of a
22
top four
minutes,
role,
20.
right?
Yeah. So he's played a larger role and he's playing much better defensively and offensively. Still, the lack of power play cohesion is definitely hurting his numbers and productivity, but it's important. And it's important that he takes what he's done so far this season, going into it healthy this offseason and coming in and hopefully running a much better power play next year. And hopefully we can at least get into the mid 20s, which is not a high bar, but if they can get
Between
any,
20 to 15, that would be the ideal, right? That's a huge improvement,
that'd be
though.
incredible at this point. Are you kidding me? That would be that
Yeah.
would that would be like them at top 5 in my mind at this
Basically,
point.
well, yeah.
I'd be ecstatic.
If you're looking at the statistics for the last 4 seasons, right, an improvement like that would be a stark difference. I mean, Drysdale's play in general. I think over this last month, you just look at the production, right? Like he has 6 points this month. That's the most points that he's had any month so far this season.
Right.
He did have 4 points in January, and 4 points. Yeah, 4 points in January. So this is one of his best months so far as a Flyer. 4 goals as well. So that's the most goals that he scored in a month as well,
Yep.
this season. So you could just tell by the offensive production. I think for me, the main thing with him is like it's a confidence, like he's a confidence driven player, right? You can see as he's kind of starting to feel things more within his game as he's getting more points. You're seeing him jumping up in the rush more, kind of, you know, being willing to activate along the boards to keep a play alive and kind of keep possession for the Flyers. I think you're seeing all those things. The skating ability is really what's popping, right? He's picking the right times for me to join the rush when it's there. It's still not a lot of the time resulting in goals, but you're hoping that as he gets more comfortable to do that and becomes more of a prominent option on the rush for them in transition, that it leads to more goals down the line throughout the years, right? They want him in that rover position, make the right call when to jump in, when not. And I think we're seeing it more than often now that he's making those calls to jump in at the right points, like into the transition offense. So.
Yeah. And I think my biggest criticism of him is that he just doesn't shoot enough. And
Yeah,
that's
he
something
doesn't.
I definitely would love. Like he really doesn't shoot more than once or twice a game. I can't find actually the whole season he has not had more than 2 shots on net. Oh no, we had one game where he had 3 shots on net. So, again, if you're going to be running a power play, you got to start getting shots on net through screens, not just passing. Again, this all goes back to what I was saying, where there's no structure to our power play. There are no plays being executed on a regular basis. You do not know what the team relies on when it comes to the power play, and Jamie's going to be a big part of fixing it if it does get fixed at least in the immediate. But it's still very positive on how much better he's played. Really good to see. Okay, so get into again. It's getting more and more positive. You know what? Let's take a quick reminder here. I'm going to do this now, and then we'll just talk about all younger guys. So just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notifications to get notified when we release our episodes. Follow us on Spotify and iTunes for the audio version. Give us a rating and a follow there as well. Again, that's the best way to support our podcast. If you guys haven't done that so far, please do so now as we roll into the second half of this show. Okay, so good news stuff. Mostly Phantoms related, but subsequently Flyers related, because season's almost over and we are already thinking about the offseason next year. But the big news, and I'm going to give credit to Anthony Sanfilippo because he's the one who tweeted this out. But the word is that Jet Luchenko and Alex Ciernik will be joining the Phantoms for the playoff run. Alex Ciernik, as we recorded this earlier today, he officially signed his ATO, which means assuming he's going to get an ELC and a contract after the ATO. They did this with McDonald as well last year, kind of brought him in on ATO and then gave him the ELC afterwards. Alex Ciernik has stagnated. We talked about it on this podcast with Steve Kornianos. He's stagnated in the Allsvenskan league. His production hasn't moved up, but we've seen him at camp. Talented player, playmaker, goal scorer, something that the Phantoms definitely need more of these type of guys. They have a lot of kind of like big body grinders and not enough playmakers within the team. So I think Alex Ciernik coming over the Phantoms is really, really welcomed. And then combine that with Jet Luchenko, who's not official yet, but word is that it's gonna be official any day now that he's gonna come over. I did think about something about why they wouldn't play him in the NHL, and I didn't think of it. It was actually Bill Meltzer who said this on Daily Faceoff, so I want to give him credit for that one. But they're not going to burn Jet Luchenko's final, was it 5 games or
Five
whatever?
games. Yeah, they're not going to burn 1 year of his ELC for him to play 5 games
Well,
with the
it's
Flyers,
not
right?
burning the ELC, it's burning the 5 games of like
Eligibility. Yeah.
eligibility where next year they can use him for the beginning of the season and then still send him back to the OHL again. Not that I think they're thinking that,
Yeah, I
but
don't
it
think it'll
removes
happen.
that away. This way, he comes in, most likely plays number one center for the Phantoms, and will, help the team in the immediate for a team that's going to make the playoffs and hopefully plays, a valuable role for this team. So, really big additions for the Phantoms there. Um, Vasily, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think just getting a guy like Lachenko on the Phantoms, right? Like that's going to be a bona fide, probably
Huge.
number one center for them.
And a
So
reason to
just
watch.
yeah, exactly. Also a reason to watch for fans that are kind of frustrated with what's happening with the Flyers right now. I will say too for Ciernik, it'll be interesting because as Steve was saying, right, he kind of stagnated a bit in the Allsvenskan. So I'm wondering a new situation, new line mates, new teammates, does that kind of get him sparked and we kind of see a resurgence and a from him, right? Like on this playoff run. I think that's kind of the thing the Flyers are hoping for, but mostly I think it's important just to get these guys playing with the Phantoms, used to kind of being in the Flyers organization and system. I think just trying to get these guys accustomed for next season is the main thing, right? Like I'm not sure if they're expecting Luchenko and Ciernik to go in there and light the world on fire. If they can go in there and help the Phantoms and add, some scoring prowess, sure. But I think the main thing will just be, can these guys get accustomed to end the season and then hit the ground running next season while they're with the organization full time? Luchenko likely with the Flyers. Ciernak, I would imagine, probably still with the Phantoms.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
one thing to note too is obviously, Luchenko's not 20 years old. So technically, after the CHL season ends, you could play in the AHL. But it's only if your junior season was ongoing, you wouldn't be allowed. So that's the rule, right?
yeah.
So if Guelph was any good and they were in the playoffs, this would not be allowed. But the fact that their season's done means the Flyers can loan him to the AHL.
Right. And that was something I was not clear on
Yeah. So like
going
next
throughout.
season, for example, if he doesn't play in the NHL, he has to go back to the OHL. He can't go to the AHL. And that's because his season will be happening with Guelph, right? There'll be a season to play. Guelph's like,
Yeah.
you're our property. You got to play with us.
Well, and we talked about how it would have been more ideal for him to play with the Phantoms this year than to play with the Flyers. And I think this is a nice, maybe he ends up getting, especially if they make an actual playoff run, maybe he ends up playing like 20 games
That's
or
pretty good
so,
for his
right?
development. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm going to be watching a lot more Phantoms games now that Luchenko and Ciernik are going to be on there, and obviously Brankin part of that. So they're putting together a pretty good squad down there, and I would imagine that as the season ends, Kolosov is going to be sent back down to play with the Phantoms as
Yeah.
well.
Most
Maybe they go
likely.
with a Kolosov Peterson or Kolosov Bjarnason. I'm not sure exactly. Kind of duo there. And then the other big addition, which is somebody we have not paid attention much to because we didn't really know much about him at all. We kind of brushed over him for all of our prospect updates. But as of today, Ty Murchison has signed a 2-year ELC. Murchison has been playing for Arizona State. He had 4 assists this year in 37 games, which is why we brushed over him. He was a +6, but apparently he set the record for his organization with 98 blocks this year, and he was named the best defensive defenseman of the year in that league. So it seems like another McDonald type of situation, potentially, bottom 6 NHL guy who can block shots, obviously, play physical, keep up with the pace. And again, the Flyers need these guys also. So I think it could be like another, we talked about it with McDonald, like a Nick Sealer replacement for the future. He's 22 years old, so he's still, and hasn't played any pro hockey yet. But I do imagine that, he's going to replace other guys in a defensive role, especially for the Phantoms. He might not play a ton this year just because I don't know if
Maybe next season more, right?
right, because the defense this year, like they still have Yinning and
They're
Granz
pretty crowded,
and
but spots
Samson,
spots will open up next season for him to
right.
get a chance. I think at least for Murchison, they obviously see tools there in terms of his defensive game, shutdown game, being able to close things off in front of the net and be physical. I
Yeah.
think, this is just an opportunity for him to continue to develop with the Phantoms and see if he can progress into that, NHL bottom pair defenseman. I think that's ultimately what his role carves out to be just based on his skill set. So I
Yeah.
think for the Flyers, it's kind of found money, right? He's a 5th round pick. If he develops into a bottom pair defenseman, that's a huge win for you, right? Most 5th round picks don't even make the NHL. If he even becomes a solid AHL defenseman for you as a 5th round pick, that's
It's
also
still
not
a
the
win. Yeah.
worst. Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a depth addition. We'll see how he progresses. I mean, it would be funny if he beats out McDonald like in the end.
You never
'Cause
know. Yeah, I'm interested
yeah.
to ask Steve next week what he thinks just based off the ELC and if it's deserved. So
Yeah, because they gave him a 2-year ELC at 860,000 per year, so he didn't get max money for an NCAA player.
no.
Typically, they get like closer to 900, but he still got paid. And they gave him a 2-year deal, which makes sense because he's 22. So we might never really see anything of Ty Murchison, but it's nice to see that he's going to get an opportunity. He's probably a guy that Lappy's going to like. Let's be honest, he loves physical players. So it's interesting. I think it's a nice piece of news. The other more exciting news, and this is a guy we're kind of waiting on still. Having said that, he just won a championship, so we might have to wait a little longer. But this is actually a big name. Now, without the call ups being available, it seems like he would be a Phantoms edition as well, which also, this would definitely help the Phantoms in the same impact that Jet Luchenko would. Alex Bump just won the NCHC championship against Zeev Boyum in Denver, where he had 2 goals and scored the overtime game winner. They were down 3-0 in that
Was
game.
sniped that game winner was. So
Yeah, and a strip along the boards for the overtime winner. They were down 3-0 in that game, and Bump scored one of the 3 goals. I think it was the second or the first goal. I can't remember. To kind of bring the team back, he was all over the place, and I forget who it was that named him. I think it was Drager. I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but they called him a collegiate superstar.
I think it
We've
might have been Craig Button or Dreger, one of those guys.
yeah. I We've seen Bump before. We know he's good. Brent Flair already called him an NHL player. There's no way the Flyers are not offering this guy an ELC right now. Maybe he wants to finish college, which wouldn't be good for the Flyers, quite frankly, because he would be a highly touted young player out there and they'd have to compete for him. So hopefully they can get Bump locked up. Kind of suspect that they will, and that will be really good. At the very least, the guy's like a minor league star, but seems like he could be a really good, not just like an admirable, but like a really good third line NHL player, maybe even middle six player. Could be like a 20 goal scorer, two-way guy.
The shot's really interesting for
Yeah,
Bump, right? Like I think you obviously see on that goal, just first of all, the release, and just his willingness in general to put the puck on the net.
great
Like
shooter.
we've talked to Steve for years in terms of bump, and he's always stood out for Steve. And he said
Yep.
every level he's gone to, he's been a goal scorer and been a difference maker. And we've seen this at the, the NCHC level winning the championship here. So I fully expect Bump to come into, the Flyers organization and kind of do the same and hit the ground running, right? It
And
seems like everywhere he goes, he has success in being able to find the net. And with a shot like his and a release like his, it's not really surprising. He gets the puck off super quick. You beat goalies that way when they're not expecting you to shoot it and release the puck off your stick that quickly. So
yeah.
I think it's something that's needed for this team, right? Like look at how much trouble they're having scoring this season. Having a guy like that you can add potentially to the team that, could be another threat for you offensively. It's something the team needs, right? They need help scoring goals. So I think a player like this, the hope for the Flyers is you bring him in, he can beat it, a guy for you on the third line that can maybe get you 20 goals a year. That would be, I think, an ideal for Alex Bump, right?
Yeah, he had 23 goals, 23 assists, 46 points in 38 games, a +9 rating, a 1.21 points per game. He's 21 years old. He turns 22 in November. Dark horse to make the Flyers as well, assuming that they can get him signed because he could be like that Noah Cates type of player. He does seem to have that similar type of impact, only more of a scorer than a defensive two-way guy. Even though he does have a two-way game, he also is pretty big for being a 6 foot guy. I think he's like 6 foot, 6'1", but he's already 200 pounds. So he's got the NHL build. So it's a pretty big deal. Bump could be a really good addition for this team. And right now there is a third line spot open. That might not be open going into next season. But it's not like Jacob Peltier has securely held that spot. And even like this year, this is why I thought maybe like Bump was going to get that call. Because if you think about Alex Bump playing with Owen Tippett, that becomes a lot more intriguing, right? And that's probably not going to be the case, but hopefully at least they can get him signed in to play a big role for the Phantoms because the Phantoms could really use somebody like him as well, especially with Excel playing with the Flyers as well, considering he was their best player
Yeah, and I mean,
this season.
if there's a plan potentially to have a guy like Grabenkin, challenge to make the Flyers next season, and a guy like Bump,
That's another guy.
you get those two playing together already, develop some chemistry. I think it wouldn't hurt. So
Yeah, Gabrankin's the type of guy, though, from what I understand, is that you could slot him in on the fourth line to start the season, playing like 11, 12 minutes,
yeah.
and it probably wouldn't kill him. But I don't think our excitement should not be projected on the actual path these guys are going to take because the team will be more patient with them than we like, which is probably the right move. But a
Well,
guy
with any
like Bump
player,
does kind
right?
of stick out.
I think extra development with any player can only benefit. Like,
Right.
I don't think there's any player you've looked at in NHL history that was like, ooh, too many games in the AHL, that ruined their career for them. It's typically not the case. If you overcook a guy in the minors and he's ready, like usually that's not a bad thing. So
Yeah, no, 100%. And the thing with Bump though is that they've seen him all along the way
yeah, of
and
course.
they already labeled him as an NHL player
They're impressed by him and what he can
a
bring,
year
right?
ago.
Yeah, they're impressed by him and what he can
Yeah.
bring. So that's why I kind of suspect he's going to have a pretty good shot to make it, for the Flyers next season, unless he has like a training camp that's really not great at all or something like that. But
Yeah.
I think he'll have an inside track, especially if he performs well.
Yeah. So the next thing we have is another college free agent who's 22, so a year older than Bump. Carson Dorwart, apparently one of the prized free agents entering the marketplace. So there will be other teams kind of vying for his services. 6'1" center, I believe he's a center, left-handed. He was, I guess, one of the better players in college hockey. He did have somewhat of a, I'm not going to say down year, but he didn't progress really statistically. Seems to be more of a two-way guy. 29 points in 34 games. The Flyers are in the running to sign him, according to Elliot Friedman, that they are on track to sign him. So that could be imminent as well. You can see the Flyers are already thinking next season, which is exactly what they should be doing. And I don't know too much about this guy. Can't say, I have too much of an upside, or understanding of what he is. But if you compare him to somebody like Rizzo, who's better offensively, but not good enough offensively to probably be an NHL impact, where you look at a guy like this, and this might be like, a guy that they're hoping could be like a fourth line center in the NHL.
Maybe play penalty kill, stuff like that.
Seems like that's the case. A lot of times these guys don't pan out, but taking a risk on somebody who's already 22 years old, you come in, you give him a 2 year ELC. He's got size. Uh, Clearly has been a leader at some point for Michigan State. So I don't know. I think it's interesting, but I don't know what to make too much about him because I don't know his
I,
game.
yeah, I haven't watched him play. Obviously, it's just a rumor based off Friedman's 32 thoughts and the fact the Flyers are interested. So that's kind of why we're bringing it up. Usually, Elliot, if he's going to mention something, he's pretty plugged in. So there must be some smoke to the fire that the Flyers are interested in this guy. I would imagine, I mean, he's a younger player, like you said. They have limited center depth. Maybe it's a guy they pick up, bring into the system. He ends up developing into like a 4C or even potentially even a 3C, who knows, right? Like take a flyer, see what happens. I think with how, like I said, how limited the depth is for this team on center, taking a flyer on another center doesn't really hurt at this point, right? Like
Yeah.
just look at their center depth in general. We've been calling for so many centers at this point. So I think, if you're going to sign anybody, at least it's a center and we see where it goes. But for Derwart, I guess the main thing and the important thing is um, he isn't only a guy that scored, but like I was saying, right, he's played on the PK as well for Michigan. So maybe they see something defensive there too, where it's not
Yeah.
just like, hey, you're gonna come in and score for us. It's more like, hey, you're probably gonna come and be a role player. But since we don't have a lot of center depth, maybe that you're a guy that can fit into that spot, right?
Yeah. I think that's exactly what the thought is with him. So the other two big names that the Flyers would love to have on the Phantoms, but honestly they're on a better track, are two London Knights players who I think everybody's still pretty excited about. Denver Barkey and Oliver Bonk. They're chasing a juniors championship, OHL championship, and then hopefully Memorial Cup, and hopefully they can win in the Memorial Cup again. Their series against the Owen Sound Attack starts Friday, March 28th at 7 p.m. is their first game. So the playoffs are getting started. We don't suspect to see them with the Phantoms this year. They will be coming over started next year. They will both probably be starting with the Phantoms. Again, Denver Barkey is outside of Alex Bump and Luchenko. He is the only other prospect the Flyers really have with like actual NHL scoring upside. It's something they will have to fix this offseason. Um, I guess I don't want to forget about Jack Berglund. He's just been injured, so we don't really know. But this is still pretty exciting for them. I guess we'll keep an eye on Bonk and Barkey, and we'll update you guys as we see fit. And yeah, good luck for them. I hope they can finally close it out this year.
Yeah, right. Like think about going to two Memorial Cup finals and losing. I just hope for their sake they're going to go on such a long run again this
Third
year.
tries a charm,
I hope they
baby.
win and get to close it out. But imagine how satisfying that would be, right? You make it to the top of the mountain again. First season you lose, you make it back, then you lose, then you make it back the third final season and finally get to win. I think that'd be a great story. So hopefully for their sake they get to close it out. But it'll be exciting because these guys are going to be big parts of the Phantom's future next season, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
So it's finally going to, culminate into them being within the Flyers organization in terms of, okay, you're finally playing pro hockey for either the Phantoms or the Flyers. So I think it's going to be interesting just to track their progress, right? I think a guy for me like Barkey could surprise, especially with the Flyers just lacking scoring punch. Like if he has a really good camp, who knows what can happen. I
Yeah.
think Bonk is a guy that will probably play in the AHL to start, but Barkey, I feel for me could be a surprise. I think a
Yeah.
lot are underestimating him.
Yeah, because I think coming in at wing is a lot easier than coming in at D,
Oh, of
right?
course, exactly. That's what I mean.
And he
You can get
has.
sheltered. You can get sheltered so much more as a winger versus a defenseman,
Yeah.
right?
I do wonder with Barkey, even though he's been playing wing, like, do they try to develop him at center at all, even though he's undersized? Do they see the Braden Point comparisons and be like, okay, do we try it at the AHL level for a little bit and see if he can do the center
Hey,
position?
it doesn't hurt. I'd say give it a shot just based on the fact that you don't have a
Right.
lot of center depth. But
Right.
if it's obviously
Exactly.
stunning his development and you can see that he's not grasping it, then you have to probably drop it pretty quickly. But I think the fact that he's played center before, it opens up the options, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about the draft, and we'll end at this. We're not going to do a deep dive into the draft, and quite frankly, Vasily and I have not had time to do our research quite yet about the draft. The only thing we really have been paying attention to are the top guys as of right now. The Flyers have the fourth worst winning percentage in the NHL. They are at 65 points, with the Buffalo Sabres with 3 games in hand right below them at 64 points. The Nashville Predators with 2 games in hand with 62 points. So they could still fall to as low as third. They will not fall lower than that. And then there's still the lottery draft beyond that. It would be interesting if they ended up at three. Very interesting in this draft. There are obviously a lot of names out there that are being thrown around as to who the Flyers should take. Right now, the consensus top two guys are Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa, who's had an exceptional OHL season, 62 goals in 65 games, 72 assists. Pretty stupid. And then Matthew Schaefer has been like the bona fide number one guy for a while right now. Dominant defenseman at the OHL level. He's got size. He's been injured for pretty much the whole, majority of the season, which has not lowered his stock at all. So it's going to be very interesting. The Flyers pick, and I'll go to you first, Vasili. The Flyers do, let's say they pick at 4, which is where they are right now. Who is the guy that you hope to grab? And if they move up to 3 or 5, I guess let's just go. What are your options of who you want at those spots?
So you're saying if they pick 3, 4, or 5, who would I want?
Yeah.
I mean, if they pick 3, I think Hagen's like he's essentially a point a game in college in his freshman season. I think people are kind of overblowing. He's having a down season.
Hmm.
Um, he's a smaller guy. I think it can be hard to adjust coming
The
from.
Jack Hughes size.
Yeah, exactly right. I think can be hard just trying to adjust to the NCAA level, just the fact that you're actually playing against men essentially for the first time in his career, and he's done a pretty good job being a point a game. It's almost like the way people are talking about him, like he is like 10 points in 35 games or something, right? And you got to think about like how productive he was for the USNTDP and the USHA or USHL the season before. He had 47 points in 26 games. So for me, just the vision and everything that Hagens brings, it is reminiscent of a Jack Hughes type of player. And if you're looking at, I mean, the offensive spark the Flyers need at center, that would be it. I don't think you could go wrong with Michael Misa either. He's more of a goal
Oh,
scorer, I would imagine, than a playmaker. I just don't know if he'll be available at those spots.
I
Like
think he's I think he's
I
probably
think
getting it too.
he's probably gone at 2, right? So for me, I think you have to go center. I think probably Hagens if he's available. Frondell's really interesting. Um, Roger McQueen's interesting to me. There's a little bit of, injury troubles, but I just like the fact that he's 6'5", and also looks like he can put up a lot of points. So we'll see. I think for me, the top 3 would probably be Hagens, Frondell, and then McQueen. But what about you, Yariv?
So I'm pretty low on McQueen, and not because of the injury or so much. I watched some footage of him. He just looks so raw that he looks like, not that he's going to be like a bust of a player, but I look at him and I go like, he might not be an actual elite talent. He might be relying more on the fact that he's just so much bigger than everybody at
Yeah,
six
he's really
five.
big. That's the big. I mean, I'm intrigued by the size for sure. I might be
Yeah, I mean, I love the size.
looking at that a little too closely, but I think out of those 3, like he would be probably the last on the list. So it's kind of like if he's the one left, then sure. But my first pick definitely Hagens and then Frondell.
Yeah. So yeah, I would agree with that. I think Porter Martone, if he was a center, would probably go second overall. I think there's a chance that he even goes second overall above Misa, just because of the size and how much teams love size. He's
Yeah.
6'3", 207 pounds. Michael Misa is not a bad size, 6'1", 185.
If he falls to them,
Um,
that would be a great pick. I mean, obviously too, if Schaefer falls by some way or reason, which I doubt, that would be an amazing pick too. It wouldn't be a center, but I think
yeah,
if he falls into your lap, you kind of have to just take the
Yeah.
best player
So
at that point.
I agree with you on Hagens. I would still be extremely interested in Hagens considering his pedigree. I look at guys like Logan Cooley and all these like undersized centers that are obviously taking off in the NHL. He has the skill, the awareness, the intelligence, the well-rounded
Yeah.
game to make the NHL. It's not ideal because we do need larger centers. But we don't have many options to grab guys like
No.
this. Frondell, I want to hear what Steve has to say about him because he was so high on him. I'm still very like Frondell. I'd be very happy with Caleb Denoyer. I only hesitate. He's 6'2", which is really nice. I hesitate with him just because it's the Q and it's the weaker of the leagues, but I've seen him ranked as high as third
Yeah, I know. He's
at
putting
this
up a
point.
crazy season. He has a lot of points right now,
Yeah.
84 points in 56 games. So, but yeah, I agree. Like, I think if you're looking at all the options, like if you have an option, let's say you pick at four, and on the board you have Higgins, Desnoyers, and Frondell, like I think it's a no-brainer to take Higgins, just the
Right.
fact that he's producing so well in his freshman year at Boston College, and we know that the NCAA is a way tougher league to play in than all these other leagues.
But
I would say though the Allsvenskan that
that's what I was gonna
Frondell is
say.
in, that
Yeah.
that might be the other
It's
league
a
that
better league than the
exactly,
NCAA. Yeah.
exactly, right. So those two, that's why it's interesting because Frondell's putting up good numbers in a men's league already, essentially. So
Yeah.
that's always an interesting thing.
Especially in the second half of
I'm
his
excited
season.
for next week just to see what Steve has to say on these guys, just because he has more insight than us. But obviously, with just where the Flyers season is at, we're gonna ramp up on the prospect research and get to know these
Yeah.
guys a lot more. That's gonna be the crux of probably what we talk about going forward. So we're gonna get in depth into it and then really be able to give more thought out and flushed out opinions on a lot of these
Yeah.
players. So
Yeah. With Steve, we'll talk mostly about Flyers prospects that we'll end on like the top 10. And then we'll do a full like draft episode with him that'll be pretty extensive, and we're going to talk
yeah,
about like the entire draft. The other guy that actually sticks out to me as a guy I can see rising as we approach the draft is Jake O'Brien.
yeah, I've
6'2",
heard his name mentioned. Yeah,
170 pounds, 66 games plays, 98 points. He is on a very good team. He plays for Brantford, so he's not doing it by himself or anything like that. But it does kind of factor into a guy like what's his upside as a player. I don't know any of these guys very well right now. I haven't watched much footage on any of them. The most I've seen is of like Hagens, to be honest with you,
I've seen the most
and
of
a
like
little bit of Frondell.
I've seen Hagen's, Misa, Martone. Those are the three that I've seen the
Right.
most.
So like, and I watched a little bit of McQueen. Our analysis right now is not good. We'll get a
No,
little bit better, but again, having Steven is really the the kind of X
he's the
factor
expert. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I agree with you, man. I'm like if Hagens is there, I'm snagging him. If we walk away with Frondell, I'm happy. As long as we walk away with a top center in this draft, from what I understand, there is a tier, and it's like Schaefer, Misa, Martone, and then Hagens,
And it drops off,
and then it
apparently.
drops off to the next tier of four, and then from there there's like another tier, and then like 14 to 24, 25 is about the same. We hear this shit every year. I don't really trust anybody at this point. I would just rely, and I say the same thing going into every draft. It's you just have to make sure you hit. And if we're drafting this high, it's got to be a top line player. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to be
exactly.
a superstar player, but it's got to be a top line player. And we can't miss out on a guy like Hagens or Frondell. Like we need. This is why I think Briere did what he did. I think that he looked. He went, okay, there are 4 or 5 guys at the more, maybe 6 guys that can play center here at the top. We have to walk away with one of them, even if they
Yeah.
walk away with McQueen at 8.
And
You
I
know?
would say too, this at least puts them in the position with all the draft capital they have. There's some guy that they really fall in love with, they really want. I think they're now in a position where, hey, this guy's getting taken at 3, or this guy's getting taken somewhere and I'm picking 4. Like I think they have so much draft capital now they might be able to move up and actually chase the guy they want, which
Yeah.
is yeah, that's a great position to be in, right? Because you don't want to miss out in another top 10 here in terms of drafting a center. I think they need to hit on the center for sure.
So let me ask you this: if the Flyers win the lottery draft, which is possible if they finish with the fourth worst record in the league, and they have the number one pick, who do you take?
You have to take Schaefer. He's just the best player available. He's been touted so highly by everybody. I just think it's too big of a risk to draft for need. Even though I just said like you need to take a center. I mean you need to take a center if you don't pick number one overall, if you don't win the lottery.
Yeah.
But if you're forced into getting a Schaefer, that's a franchise level defenseman. It's looking like just based off the way he's playing and just if you saw clips of him and how he can skate and move the puck. I would say we've seen how a defenseman like that can turn a team around. Don't shy away from it. Look at what Cale Makar did to Colorado. Look at what Miro Heiskanen did to that Dallas team, right? It kind of revamped their whole rebuild and kind of started things up for them a few years back when they picked him. So I think getting that number one defenseman that's going to be your franchise D-man for years and years to come, it's what you need to win ultimately. Look at every single team that wins a cup, right? Think about Tampa drafting a Hedman, Colorado drafting a McCarr, Dallas drafting a Heiskin. You need a guy like that. So
Yeah. I do think about the situation though where it's like this guy's been injured, nobody's been watching him, like is there like an opportunity that his game maybe would fall off during the season? Probably not. But it is a tough situation, right? Because then you're like, okay, then we draft the top D man and we go and we trade for a center,
yeah,
right? Because now we
exactly.
have an excess of D that's locked up. We have Bonk, we have Schaefer, right? We have Drysdale, we have York, we have Andre,
I
you
mean, to
know,
be honest, if you draft a guy like Schaefer, I feel like Cam York's probably getting traded.
and but that would make sense though,
Exactly though.
even
Then
without the
you
drama
that
around
but
York.
no, of course, but then you viably have a guy that's going to replace him and probably be a better replacement if we're being
Yes.
honest, right?
And
So,
and it gives you the lever to pull to find a center,
yeah,
right? Which you
exactly.
really need to do. And Drysdale play in the short sprint is not going to get you the center that you want. The only guy you really have on D that could get you the center you want is York. So that would have to be the move or something like it, most likely. And maybe they would go a more patient approach. I'm almost hoping that that doesn't happen, which is weird. So they're kind of just forced to take a center and we don't have any drama around the player. It's kind of like we just take the best guy available and everybody's happy with it. And it's a center. And we now have Luchenko and Hagens or Frondell. And we have two top six centers there and we see the vision, we see Michkov, right? I mean, we still need a number one defenseman though, right? We
Yeah,
still
exactly.
need a backbone of the defense guy who can play 25 minutes a night and put up 60 points a year, 60 plus points a year. We don't have that guy, right? Like Sanheim has been great, but he's not like a 60-point defenseman. He's a guy who
No,
can
they
play
need that
against the
guy
best
that can
players on
run.
the
They
other
need you
team.
need they need the guy that can run their power play both
Right.
offensively and also shut guys down essentially. And
Yeah.
that's what, Schaefer projects to be. So we'll see if they get lucky and, fall into that number one pick. I mean, obviously it's not the position you're looking for, but I just think you're getting such a talented player. It's a win-win, right?
Yeah, and he's a September birthday, so
Yeah.
he's very
Yeah.
young.
Yeah. There's only room to grow for him, I would say.
Yeah, he's very young, and he had a huge jump from. That's the crazy thing. Last season, he had 17 points as I guess like a 16-year-old in 56 games in the OHL, and then this year had 22 points in 17 games. So he surpassed his point output in 17 games versus 56. So
Which is
that's
nuts. That's what I
crazy
mean.
growth. So yeah, you gotta hope that the scouts really know what they're doing because the next best defenseman is like Jackson Smith, who I don't think really compares to Schaefer at all. And I don't think the Flyers are necessarily focused on drafting a D man that high unless it's Schaefer. I think realistically, we're getting a center this year. So hopefully, ideally, I think the Flyers finish at 2, and I would be very happy with Michael Misa. I mean, I don't even know if the Flyers would take Misa at 2. But I think I'll be honest with you. On paper, it looks like they would want Porter Martone, but they don't need another winger. They need a center bad. So I think in this draft, it is a little bit draft for need, where maybe you pass on the big body that you want because you need a center, kind of like what they did last year, right? Where they passed on Zeev Boyum and went for Luchenko because they really needed a center, and they believed that they were comparable. So that's where we're at, and they love Luchenko. So I don't expect any extreme X factors at the top of this draft from the Flyers, but hopefully they identify the best center. And I have this whole like when I see Europeans ranked amongst so many like North American players, I always go back to like Mikko Rantanen in my head, where I'm like he was like not he was slated to like the Flyers wanted him. They went for Provorov, right? Rantanen was taken like
Yep.
essentially like a little bit afterwards. And then Rantanen's like kind of the best player that came from that draft, or definitely one of them. And even though that was a very strong draft, but still I look at it and I'm like, man, like this team needs Mikko Rantanen today. We need that elite forward really badly in this squad. And I think
Yeah, the team
they
can't
can't
score, right?
outscore. Yeah.
Yeah, the team can't score goals, so they need somebody to pair with Mitchkov. I think that's
Yes.
the point. I mean, whether it's Schaefer potentially that you get, or it's one of these centers. I mean, it just has to be somebody that can create offense for you. So I think they're going to be getting one of these high-end players nonetheless.
You know, it's so shocking that Mitchkov is back with TK and that line is producing. It's almost like they should have been doing it for a while now. And
Probably
that
if you put your best players together, typically
funny
they
how that
produce,
works.
right?
And you know, when TK is not scoring for 20 games and you're scared to still put him on the left wing, I did not understand that at all. It's like if anything, put him on the left wing, see if he starts scoring, you know?
Yep.
Anyway, all right, this was a good one. Anything you want to leave our audience with?
No, just thanks to everybody for supporting us and giving us, the listens. We really appreciate it. So we're gonna
For
continue to
sure.
keep doing this, obviously, as we roll into the off season as well. It's coming around the corner, so just continue to keep listening, and we'll keep pumping the content out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification button for notifications to get notified when we release these episodes. Share it out if you can. That would also be a big help. For the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes. Give us a rating and a follow as well. For our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South, make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak. They have one of the best cheesesteak, if not the best cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment need. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. Make sure you get the best claim possible. Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And shout out to sportspider.com. They are our partners. They aggregate sports content from all over the internet. Our stuff is pinned at the top. Make sure to go check out sportspider.com. The link is in the description. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Vasili, for being awesome as usual. We love you guys. And remember, always stay